Hi, and welcome to the Eating Disorder Information Network's training video on how to tell the story of your eating disorder and recovery. My name is Erin Bushman, and I'm the Executive Director of EDIN.
And my name's Dina Zeckhausen, and I'm the founder of EDIN. Today we're going to give you some great helpful tips and hints so that it's a wonderful experience for you and your audience.
EDIN is dedicated to increasing the awareness of eating disorders and decreasing the stigma and shame that can surround them. We do this by providing relevant and helpful information, including real stories from people who have experienced them directly. Real stories are memorable, they touch on our emotions, and they give us an authentic glimpse into what it's really like to have an eating disorder. I genuinely thank you for your willingness to share your story. Your story has the power to dispel myths. It has the power to encourage those who are struggling with an eating disorder and give guidance to those who have family and friends who may be struggling. Several decades ago, researchers discovered that when speakers shared stories about eating disorders, the rates of eating disorders actually would increase. The logic goes, well, she's beautiful, she's smart, it looks like she has it all together, and she has an eating disorder, so people assume that it wouldn't be that bad. There is a potential for glamorizing eating disorders and portraying them as passing fads, which are obviously myths that we don't want to perpetuate. Thankfully, since that time, we have learned what is helpful and what is harmful when it comes to sharing your story of an eating disorder. Because EDIN is dedicated to doing no harm, we have developed these guidelines to maximize the positive impact and minimize the risks to your audience members. These guidelines will help you develop a 10 to 12-minute talk with time allowed afterwards for questions. It may not seem like a lot of time, but you can say a lot in 10 to 12 minutes. It's best to have a concise, tight version of your talk because you can always fill in details if you have extra time. For EDIN presentations in schools and communities, you will be paired with a professional in the field, such as a mental health therapist or a dietitian. This person will be available to answer audience questions that you may not be equipped to answer. The professional will give the factual information on eating disorders, including research, and you'll be there to provide your personal insight into what it's like.
I'm going to talk to you about the 10 commandments for telling a great story. So, number 1. Organize your talk around key messages. Think about what are some important messages that you want to convey, maybe one or two, and then you want to tell stories that really illustrate that message. For example, one woman talked about the fact that when she was 7 years old, she found herself ironing her running shorts, and then she went into saying that she was a bit of a perfectionist. So that's a great visual image that people are going to remember, and then she could talk about her perfectionism and wind her story around that. So it's really helpful to have a couple of key messages and then you hook your story around those messages. Number 2, thou shalt tell a good story. The best stories are ones that really share a journey rather than an outcome. People are most curious about how your eating disorder developed, what made you decide to turn it around, and what your life is like now. So be sure that that's sort of the arc of your story. Number 3, focus on the facts and not so much on the emotion. We don't want you to come across as a victim of your story. We want people to connect with you on an emotional level, but to identify with you and not to feel sorry for you. So again, focus on the facts and not so much on the emotion and the pain. Number 4, there is no substitute for passion. There's a reason that you decided to go through all this, that you got better and decided that you wanted to give back. And you have to keep that in mind when you start getting nervous about your talk. Your perfectionism is going to pop up and worry about how you look and coming across perfect and what outfit you're wearing. Remind yourself you're there to try to reach one person in the audience. And in fact, you're going to reach many people in the audience. You have to believe us on this. Take it as a leap of faith. You are going to make an impact on people's lives. And if you can hold on to that, it helps with counteracting the perfectionistic voice that starts worrying about the wrong stuff. Number 5, those first few minutes matter. Memorize the first few sentences of your talk so that you don't have a slow run-up. We want you to shine right off the bat and grab people's attention right off the bat. We don't want you to show your best self 2 minutes into your talk, so practice those first few minutes. Number 6, now this is a little scary, but we want you to work without a net. What that means is go ahead and try to memorize your talk. We don't want you to have a bunch of visual aids. If you need to have notes to refer to, that's okay. But we don't want you reading your talk or you will lose your audience. You know your story. This is your story. And we want you to be able to get up in front of an audience and share your story authentically from the heart. You will have practiced it enough times that it's in there, and so even if you're anxious, it's going to flow out. But it's best if you don't read your talk because you really will lose your audience. Number 7, do not worry about looking perfect. Smile, be yourself, be authentic. That's what people are going to relate to. Go ahead and look at your audience. As intimidating as that is, it will actually help calm your anxiety down. There are always a couple of nodders in the audience. I like to find the nodders and talk directly to them. So find a nodder over here, say a couple of sentences to her, and then find a nodder over there and say a couple of sentences over there. That's going to help calm your anxiety down and help you connect with your audience. Number 8, say just enough and then stop. If you have a time limit, stick to your time limit. If you go over your time limit, people are going to be looking at their watches and you're going to lose them. Now, the problem is our brains think we have to tell a complete story, and our brains think, oh, a complete story means a lot of details. And people with eating disorders tend to have a little OCD and anxiety, and everything feels important. So that's why you need help sometimes with editing, and we are happy to help with editing your story. If you want to write it out first and email it to us, we can help highlight the parts that really matter and take out some of the parts that are less important. So it's really hard to do when it's your own story because it all feels important. So that's why it's helpful to get some outside help with editing. Number 9, practice and practice and practice until you feel very comfortable with the story. You want to practice with a friend, in front of a mirror, videotape it if you can, and practice right before bed so that when you go to sleep that night, your brain will be laying down and committing those stories to your memory so that when you wake up, it's really in there. The more times you practice, the less your story is going to be impacted by the natural anxiety that you're going to have when you get up on stage. So if you really know it, then you're going to be fine. Now, I know when people are anxious, they tend to procrastinate. And so you might start putting this off, and then your anxiety goes up. So the best thing you can do for yourself is start early, a couple of weeks before your talk, get your talk down and practice. So then you're not getting anxious and avoiding it until the last minute. Number 10, say thank you. People are going to come up to you after your talk and tell you what a great job you did. Take that in. That's why you're there. This is part of your healing too. It's okay to just say thank you. And you don't have to say, oh, well, you know, I messed up here and there and I wish I had said blah, blah, blah. Just smile and say thank you.
Now we'll talk about the concrete steps of how to develop your talk. Please refer to the handout, Preparing for Your Talk. Your presentation will be divided into 5 chronological sections. The first section is how it started. What were the first signs of your problem? What were some of your beliefs about food and your body? This information can help parents, teachers, and friends recognize early warning signs of eating disorders in others. Section number 2, important influences. Most eating disorders are influenced by a combination of genetic, behavioral, psychological, and social influences. Do you have certain personality traits, or were there outside influences on your negative thinking? Was there a particular moment or a trigger that got things started? Section number 3, what it was like at its worst. What were some of the unpleasant realities? Remember to leave out specific details about weight, sizes, or any numbers. Understanding how eating disorders can impact your relationships, health, and academic or career pursuits can help de-glamorize them. Section number 4, getting help. What finally got you to reach out for help, and what type of help did you get? What were some realizations or aha moments that you had during treatment? Section number 5, your life now. How do you stay in recovery, and what have you learned overall? Each of these sections should be an average of 2 minutes long so that your entire talk will take 10 to 12 minutes. Some sections can be longer and others shorter. Aim for the majority of your talk to be about milestones, turning points, what you learned along your journey, coping skills, how you stay in recovery, and the importance of treatment. Write your responses to each of these sections down and read them out loud. Go ahead and time yourself. Record yourself giving your talk on your phone and then look back over it. Be sure to practice in front of family and friends. The more that you practice, the more concise your talk will be, and the easier it will be for you on the day of your presentation. If you need help with editing your talk, or if you have any questions about what is appropriate to say, please email us and we'll be happy to help.
After your talk, you may have a whole mix of feelings. You'll probably have some really good feelings, like this amazing sense of relief at having shared something about yourself that used to be very secretive and felt shameful, and you've gotten that off of your chest and out of your heart, and that's going to feel really great. You'll probably be getting lots of hugs and lots of support from people that you might not even have expected to be so pleased and impressed with you. So that can feel really, really good. Take that all in. People might also start telling you their stories. Do not feel pressured to fix your audience. Go ahead and listen to their story if they ask for advice. Now, you don't want to give people advice because you're not in a position to be giving people advice. What you want to do is really recommend that people seek out help. And that's what the EDIN website is for. So remember to send people to myedin.org, and that's where they can get information and they can find a therapist, a dietitian. So it's not your responsibility to fix your audience. The other thing that often happens after someone gives a talk, and I know because I've been through this myself, as you're driving away, you're going to start thinking about all the things that you wish you had said, or you're going to think of that time that you stumbled and it wasn't perfect. Again, that's your perfectionism talking. Don't worry about that. If it really starts to bug at you and you can't let it go ahead and share it with a friend, talk to your therapist about it, or talk to me or Erin if you're worried about afterwards how you did and you can't seem to quiet that down. It's normal to have those thoughts and regrets after you give a talk, but if you can't let it go within an hour or a couple of hours, please get some help because we don't want you suffering afterwards. We want you to feel really good and proud of yourself.
Now it's time to talk about EDIN's Speakers Bureau. The Speakers Bureau is a group of people like yourself who has a personal connection with an eating disorder and wants to share it in order to benefit others. There are 3 requirements to be a member. The first is that you've been working on recovery for at least a year. The second is that your recovery has involved professional help. And the third is that you've completed this training session and submitted an official Speakers Bureau application. So, how exactly do we define recovery? Well, there are 3 aspects. The first component to recovery is the physical piece. This means that you're maintaining a healthy weight and vitals over time. The second component is behavioral recovery. This includes not engaging in restricting your food, binging, purging, excessive exercise, or any other eating disorder behaviors. The third aspect to recovery is psychological recovery. This is the ability to manage and redirect eating disorder thoughts and feelings. Recovery from an eating disorder is challenging, and it takes a lot of time and hard work, which is why it's important that you focus solely on your recovery until you feel you're in a stable place. For the safety of you and for the safety of your audience, it's important that you've been working on all 3 aspects of recovery, the physical, behavioral, and psychological, for at least a year. While everyone has bad days and recovery is not a perfect process, you'll have your ups and downs. It is important that you've been working on recovery for a minimum of 1 year. This might be a good thing to talk about with your therapist or close family and friends to determine if you are ready.
We have a requirement for being on the Speakers Bureau panel, and that is that you have worked with a professional, and we want to tell you a couple of reasons why that is so. First of all, we live in a quick fix society. People think that you can lose 30 pounds in 30 days, and everybody gets the message from the media when they see these stars who have an eating disorder and go to rehab for 3 weeks and they're suddenly better, that the recovery process is fairly quick and kind of luxurious, actually. You get to go to a lovely spa and ride horses and then it's all better. The fact is, as you know, getting better from an eating disorder can take months and even years and be quite expensive and costly, and we want our audience to really know the reality of what it takes to recover. It could be that when people hear how difficult it is to recover, you might actually help prevent someone from going down that road, because they're going to realize that it is not so easy to turn this thing around. So we want to give people the truth, the real story about how hard it is to get better. The other thing is that people with eating disorders, as you know, tend to be perfectionists. And there's also a lot of denial when a person is struggling with an eating disorder and they think, oh, my eating disorder is not that bad, and I don't really need help. Or they might see asking for help as a sign of weakness, as a sign that they are not strong enough to turn this thing around. So again, those are very common feelings. A, that I'm not that sick, it's not that bad, and my problem's not bad enough for me to ask for help. So we want to give the message that it's okay to ask for help, that in fact that is not a sign of weakness, that asking for help is a sign of courage and intelligence, and that eating disorders are so complex, it often takes an entire team of professionals to get better. You might need a therapist and a dietitian. You might need a psychiatrist and a medical doctor. You might need to go to group therapy and family therapy. And there's a reason that not all helping professionals specialize in eating disorders, because they are so complex. So we really want to convey that message that recovery is an important process, but it's not easy. And that if you're struggling, the quicker you get help, the quicker you can turn it around. The longer it goes on, the more it becomes your normal way of thinking, and the more help that it is going to require to get better.
The third requirement for the Speakers Bureau, completing this training, is almost complete. The application process includes writing a short bio of yourself and your experience, Signing a contract that states that you are in recovery and that you will cancel membership if you feel participation is not in your best interest, and the signature approval of your current or most recent mental health therapist. Just email the application along with a photo of yourself to me and you'll be well on your way. Once approved, your photo and your bio will be posted on our website and you will be placed on our Speakers Bureau listserv, where you'll receive opportunities for speaking in the community and in schools. Thank you so much for spending the time watching this training video. We encourage you to take a closer look at the handouts provided.
And please let us know if you have any questions about what you heard today. Feel free to email either of us and we can help you out. We really appreciate you helping support our mission of preventing eating disorders and raising awareness by sharing your story.